The entity in question fed on nightmares. For him, it wasn't just about consuming fear, it was about quality. The best nightmares usually came from those near death or closely connected to it. Now it seemed he had found someone who fit that description. Still, there was sadness in his eyes as he watched her suffer. He understood that someone like her, someone producing this level of nightmares, was rare. And yet, her pain was essential for his survival. She begged to be saved from the nightmare, but he wasn't ready to release her. In his mind, her suffering was like a carefully prepared meal, something exclusive, made by a master for a single person. He compared the situation to obtaining the elixir of eternity. Eventually, he sat down to watch her more comfortably. He observed her silently as she pleaded for the nightmare to end. As an entity connected to dreams, learning her name was effortless. Her name was Seo Kang. He hesitated. Part of him wanted to consume the nightmare. It was nearly perfect, shaped by 7,000 days of built-up malice and violent thoughts. Its depth and complexity made it highly desirable. He began to tap into the nightmare. Almost immediately, he noticed its intensity. That same intensity was attracting other dark forces, all eager to feed on it. Still, he had no plans to share. He made a decision. He would step in and remove the others. Once inside Seo Kang's subconscious, he saw how still it was. Despite her loud cries for help, the inner world was unusually quiet. Something felt off. He looked deeper. That's when he found the core of her struggle. She was still trapped inside the nightmare, still begging for escape. Nearby, another entity, a demon, was trying to feed from her fear. The nightmare feeder went deeper into her mind. He saw her running from the demon. He offered to help. She noticed him, though she didn't know who he was. Still, he had reached out his hand. Seo Kang didn't hesitate. As she moved toward him, the demon tightened its grip. It refused to let go. Then the nightmare feeder claimed her as his. With that, he stepped in, broke the demon's hold, and helped her escape. Seo Kang kept running toward him, even though she didn't know who or what he was. Something in her trusted that he might be able to pull her out of the nightmare. For now, it seemed like she had made the right decision. Even if it was just a dream, his arrival had caused the nightmare to start falling apart. Now, she didn't want to let go. That might change later, especially if he told her the truth, that he wanted to consume her dream. But this was where it all began, with the Dream Eater. To understand why she was suffering these nightmares, it helped to go back. Seo Kang's professional life had started in modeling. She was known for her beauty and poise. Later, she tried acting. Her debut came in a film directed by a rookie, but it gained attention quickly. The movie earned a PG-18 rating, and Seo played the role of a hitman's victim. It was a high-profile debut, and it launched her career. From there, she continued on a steady path in the acting world. She received advertising offers and increasing recognition. Her name became associated with South Korea's top actresses. Despite all this success, she was plagued by terrible dreams. They came every night, dark, persistent, and violent. Even with her rising fame, she couldn't escape them. It was as if the nightmares were trying to erase her. On top of that, many of her personal staff and bodyguards began to resign. They complained about disturbing dreams they couldn't explain. Most believed it had something to do with her. And they weren't wrong. Though her career was thriving, the people around her were growing more miserable. The farther she climbed, the more isolated she became. Over time, Seo Kang reached a mental state where she no longer feared death. If it came, it wouldn't surprise her. Then something changed. She met a strange, beautiful man in her dreams. Before he appeared, her dreams had been nothing but fear and confusion. But his presence stood out. He was clear, detailed, unlike everything else. She remembered him. She clung to that memory because it was the only thing that made the nightmares stop. That was why she rushed to him again. Now, she wanted to understand what he wanted. If it meant keeping him near, she was willing to offer it. Maybe even as a trade. He had said he wanted to eat her dreams, but she still didn't understand what that meant. Seo Kang couldn't understand how someone could ask to eat a dream. But at this point, she was nearing her limit. She wasn't sure what the offer really meant, but she was willing to listen. All she wanted now was to live a normal life and sleep peacefully at night. As she sat in the car, lost in thought, her driver also seemed distracted. He was new, still adjusting to the job, and kept watching her quietly through the rearview mirror. His name was Samong. He found himself wondering why the company was making such a big deal out of hiring a new head of security. That thought stayed with him for most of the ride. So much so that he almost missed their stop. Seo had to raise her voice to snap him out of it. He quickly pulled over and stopped the car. As they stepped out, he watched her closely. Seo paused for a moment, mentally preparing herself for the crowd she was about to face. Her focus and presence intimidated him a little. Still, she put on a professional expression and walked into the building. Inside, she greeted the office staff. They responded warmly, clearly happy to see her, and also Samong. After that, she made her way upstairs to see her boss. The man, round and cheerful, apologized for hiring someone without her approval. He explained that he had chosen the new head of security because he wanted her to rest. He also mentioned something interesting. Like her, the man only used a single character in his name. His surname was Han, and his first name was San. Seo noted that San meant mountain and her name meant river. It felt like an unusual match. What she didn't know yet was that the new head of security was already in the room. The lights were dim. She didn't notice him until she turned, and then she froze. The man stepped forward and introduced himself as Hansen. He extended his hand for a handshake. It was supposed to be their first meeting, but Seo recognized him instantly. He looked just like the man from her dream. Still in shock, she accepted the handshake. Hansen said he looked forward to working with her, but Seo could only think about how his dream version had said he wanted to eat her dreams. Even so, she wasn't ready to believe they were the same person. Seo Kang felt certain. Han-san was the one who had saved her from the nightmare. Before she could say anything, her boss interrupted. He suggested they move the conversation to the meeting room. As they turned to leave, she noticed something odd. Han-san was lightly scratching the palm of her hand during the handshake. She didn't know why he was doing it. She wasn't sure if it was intentional. Still, something about his presence felt strange. Even more unusual was the way her emotions were reacting. Despite the confusion, her heart fluttered. Somewhere deep within her fear, a small hope had started to grow. She didn't know why, but it was there. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Hansan's arrival had left her so shaken that she didn't fully register what happened next. By the time she came to her senses, she was already in the car, heading home. Samyoung, the driver, was complaining about something. He said it wasn't fair. His words pulled Seo out of her thoughts. She blinked, realizing she had no memory of leaving the meeting room or getting into the car. Samyoung kept talking. He was clearly jealous of Han. He wondered out loud why someone could be that handsome and still tall. It bothered him. He continued complaining until they reached her house. At the gate, she asked him when Han would be starting the job. Samyoung reminded her that she had zoned out earlier. He said Han would be starting soon, probably very soon, especially considering how much their CEO liked to stay busy. He mentioned that it would be hard for Seo to take time off and then return to work. She already knew that. Still, he brought it up again. He didn't want her pushing herself too hard like before. Last time, she had collapsed, and it had terrified him. She agreed to rest. But before leaving, Samyoung made it clear that he didn't just want her to rest. He wanted her to keep her promise. She needed to eat properly and sleep well. If she did, he believed she would be fine. He told her to go inside, then drove away. But Seo didn't listen right away. She stood outside watching his car leave. It had been more than 10 years since she first met Samyoung. Even through all the hard years, especially after she became a star, He had remained the one person who always cared about her health. That was why Seo Kang remained outside for a moment longer. She quietly wished Samyung a safe drive home before going inside. By nightfall, she was alone again. As always, fear of sleep crept in. To stay awake, she took a shower. But instead of feeling refreshed, she felt more tired. She wondered if the exhaustion came from trying so hard not to sleep. Her chronic sleep deprivation had pushed her to the edge. Her body now craved sleep in ways that felt almost inhuman. She questioned whether there was a way to live without ever needing to sleep. Right now, she was near her limit. She headed to the kitchen to make coffee, hoping to stay awake just a little longer. Then she stopped. A sudden image of S came to mind, the man who had once offered to help her. She stared out the window, thinking, maybe she should try sleeping. Maybe he would appear again. If he did, there was something she wanted to ask him. She needed to know if he could pull her out of these relentless nightmares, or, if possible, stop the dreams entirely. If Han-san really was the man from her dreams, then he might have a way. For now, she had only one hope, that whoever he was, S, Han-san, or someone else, he would come into her dream again. She just wanted him to take the nightmares away. But when she finally fell asleep, she found herself back in the nightmare. It was familiar. Still, the realization brought tears to her eyes. She didn't understand why S hadn't shown up to save her. Again, she had to face the nightmare alone. This time, it was the same recurring dream. Her old orphanage director transforming into a monster and attacking her. The fear and pain were worse than usual. The nightmare was so vivid it left physical sensations that lingered even after she woke. She hated it. She felt the nightmare was more painful now because she had once tasted comfort. Han's presence. If only he would appear again. But what if he never came back? What would she do? Eventually, she woke up. She whispered to herself that he wouldn't abandon her. She stumbled to the fridge and took out some water. Her body was trembling. She knew she was near her breaking point. She had followed everything Hwang told her to do. But nothing had changed. There was nothing Seo Kang hadn't tried. She had used talismans, charms, injections, folk remedies, and modern medicine. She had even followed superstitions. None of it worked. She had escaped death 3 times, but still didn't know what else to do. Despite everything that happened the night before, she was still sleepy. That surprised her. What kept her awake, at least for now, was the thought that S didn't appear. She believed that, like before, if he had just held her hand, it would have been enough to calm her. Then, she heard his voice. Soft and sudden. Asking how she wanted him to hold her hand. The voice gave her hope. He appeared like a vision, gently holding her hand. It was brief, but clear. She felt comforted, knowing he had come and gone. That alone gave her strength. After such a difficult night, a new day began. She still wanted one thing, to live normally without nightmares. Even if not today, she hoped for that day to come. Some doubt lingered, but it didn't stop her from moving forward. By breakfast, she was watching the weather forecast. It looked like a good day to go out. She quickly decided to put on a disguise. She knew that once she returned, she wouldn't get much rest. She planned to visit the bookstore and check out some books. She also thought about running the motorcycle, something she hadn't done in a while. With her plans set, Seo got on her motorcycle and joined the flow of traffic. Her first stop was Gakkyo bookstore. There, she noticed a crowd. Many people were browsing this month's magazine issue, the one that featured her recent photo shoot. Then, someone pointed in her direction. She froze. But it wasn't her the fans had seen. It was her photo on the magazine cover. Relief washed over her. She smiled quietly. It was comforting to know that her fans still remembered her. That warm feeling stayed with her for a moment, until something caught her attention. One book was sticking out awkwardly from the shelf. Curious, she pulled it out. At first, she assumed it was a regular novel, but it wasn't. It was a book about dream demons. It was According to the book, dream demons are entities that feed on fear and terror created in human nightmares. To Seo Kang, it sounded like fiction. Still, something about it felt plausible. She was about to read more when another fan spotted her. This time, it wasn't about the magazine cover. The fan recognized her directly. Not wanting to draw attention, Seo quietly put the book back on the shelf and left the store before more people could recognize her. She wasn't ready to meet her fans just yet. Later that day, she came to a quiet conclusion. Han-san might be the dream demon. She wanted to learn more. So, on another day, she returned to the bookstore to find the same book again. But it was gone. She asked the staff about it. They told her no such book had ever been in stock. Even the store's website didn't list it. This made her wonder, was it possible she imagined the book? Or worse, was she somehow being possessed? That thought lingered. While thinking it over, she opened her phone and started reading old text messages from Samyung. The messages brought back memories. She remembered the time she collapsed after work. It happened because she had gone too long without sleep or food. The nightmares had drained her completely. Luckily, Samyung found her just in time. He helped her recover. Since then, he had taken on parts of her personal management. She sometimes felt guilty about the burden he carried because of her. But she let him do it, because it was him. If it had been anyone else, she would have refused. To her, it didn't feel like management. It felt more like surveillance. Even so, she trusted him. Thinking of him, she checked her kitchen. She realized she had drunk too much soda, something Samyung would definitely scold her for. He was the only guest she had ever allowed into her home. He even had a spare key for safety reasons. Wanting to avoid a lecture, she began clearing out the soda cans. After cleaning up, she looked around and felt confident. With the place tidy, she believed there was nothing left for him to worry about. Fortunately for Seo Kang, the doorbell rang just as she finished cleaning. She assumed it was Samyung, arriving as usual to check on her. Since he used the doorbell, she felt certain it was him. But when she opened the door, she was caught off guard. Standing there was Han-san. She didn't understand why he was at her apartment. Before she could ask, he handed her a pack of rice cakes. He explained that it was tradition to give out rice cakes when moving into a new place. He had noticed a bakery nearby and picked them up. He said it quickly, but one word caught her attention. Moving. He clarified that he had moved into the unit upstairs. She asked why. Han replied that it wasn't strange for a bodyguard to live in the same building as the person he was protecting, especially a top star. But Seo knew something didn't add up. She told him he was misunderstanding her. It didn't make sense. The company wouldn't assign a luxury apartment in a high-end Seoul neighborhood to a bodyguard. Trying to ease her suspicion, Han brought up the time she collapsed. He said he had heard how badly the incident affected her, and that she stayed home for a while afterward. He implied that he moved in to be closer so she would feel safer. He also added that it wasn't just his decision. According to him, CEO Hwang had agreed that closer security was needed to protect her properly. SEO wasn't convinced. She didn't know what he meant by closer security. Han said it plainly. He needed to be nearby so he could respond immediately if she ever called. She listened but found it hard to accept. To her, the whole thing was absurd. She knew CEO Hwang. He was notoriously stingy. The idea of him paying for a luxury apartment for security staff didn't match his character, especially since her manager, Samyung, who had worked with her for over 10 years, still lived in a rooftop room. As Han handed her the rice cakes, she stared at him, trying to figure it out. She couldn't understand how this man had convinced her boss so easily. For now, Seo Kang gave up questioning him. She took the rice cakes from Han-san, especially after he said he needed to see her accept them quickly so he could head home. She thanked him for the food. He said that wasn't necessary. He then mentioned he would see her again at the company and turned to leave. She was caught off guard by how suddenly he was ending the visit. Instead of letting him go, she stopped him. She offered him a drink. He didn't answer right away. She noticed the pause. It reminded her of how he behaved in her dreams, always taking a moment before responding. Then she saw the way he was looking at her. His eyes held a focused stare, and she wondered why. Suddenly, he asked if it was all right to come inside. The question pulled her attention back to him. He followed up by asking if it was really okay for them to become this close so soon. She gave no clear reply. He stepped inside anyway, leaving her at the door, surrounded by the scent of the breeze he left behind. At this point, Seo wasn't sure what was real anymore. She couldn't tell how much of her life was a dream and how much was actually happening. Given everything she had experienced, no one could blame her for feeling that way. As night continued, Han-san took a moment to look around her apartment. He noticed a life-sized painting of her and paused in front of it. He said it was beautiful. She then asked if she had invited him in too quickly. He told her she hadn't. In fact, he admitted he had already planned to come over, even without the invitation. She asked why. He answered that it was for a preliminary inspection. She didn't understand what he meant. Before she could ask, he explained that crimes these days had become unpredictable. He added that people weren't even safe in their own homes anymore. His words made her uneasy. He noticed the tension and told her to relax. He promised he would make sure she could sleep without worry. After that, the two of them sat down for tea. As they sipped quietly, Seo gathered her thoughts and asked him a question. She wanted to know if, by any chance, they had met before. Seo Kang watched him carefully. She thought it was safer to ask if they had met before rather than asking if he recognized her. But instead of answering, Han-san returned the question to her. He said he wasn't sure. Then, he asked her if she had seen him somewhere before. She admitted that she thought she had. Curious, he asked where. She didn't know what to say. It felt like she had seen him in her dream, but she couldn't exactly say that out loud. Fortunately, he didn't press further. He casually added that he probably only recognized her from television. That response left her unsure again. Was he the man who saved her in the dream or not? She was still thinking about it when her phone rang. It was Samyung. The call reminded her that he was supposed to come by. She picked up. He told her he had sent a few messages. When she didn't reply, he decided to call. Then he informed her that he was already outside her door and asked for permission to come in. Her heart jumped. She wasn't ready for him to see Han-san there. Quickly, she told Samyung to wait and promised she would open the door in a moment. Then she turned to Han and told him to hide. He looked confused and asked why. She explained in a rush that her manager was at the door. Instead of hiding, Han suggested greeting him, but Seo quickly rejected the idea. She said it was better not to create any misunderstandings. She asked him to trust her and follow her instructions quietly. Then she grabbed his arm and pulled him toward a large drawer. He still didn't understand the urgency. He pointed out that she was the one creating the misunderstanding. Still, she forced him inside the drawer and begged him not to make any noise. She promised to let him out soon. Han, taking the moment lightly, asked if they were now in a secret affair. She ignored the comment. For now, she managed to hide him. But getting rid of Samyung was another issue. He cared about her deeply. Too deeply to leave quickly. Even when she insisted she could manage, he still brought her food and tried to take care of her. Samyung, still eager to prove how serious he was about helping, offered to clean up a bit. For now, he focused on preparing vegetables. He used a dull knife, so dull in fact, that he muttered about needing to get it sharpened. Right after saying that, the knife slipped and cut his finger. It was as if the knife had taken offense at being called useless. Seo, seeing the blood on his hand, rushed to get the first aid kit. But when she reached the usual spot, it wasn't there. To her surprise, Samyung knew where it was. He explained that he had reorganized some of the household items and stored them in the drawer inside the dressing room. That was the same drawer where Seo had hidden Han-san. She realized this too late. By the time she tried to stop him, the drawer was already open. The two men came face to face. Samyung was visibly shocked. He immediately asked what Han was doing there. As expected, Han responded by flipping the question back at him. Now that the secret was out, Seo had no choice but to help treat Samyung's hand and prepare to explain the situation. She begged him not to get the wrong idea, but instead of reacting with anger, Samyung laughed. He asked what exactly she had expected him to think. Hearing that made her regret not introducing them properly in the first place, just as Han had suggested earlier. She knew Samyung too well. He had always understood her reserved nature and clumsy approach to relationships. They had known each other for a long time. It took a while for her to let him in. Their closeness had only formed thanks to his consistent, one-sided effort over the years. She usually kept people at a distance. Yet here she was, letting Han-san, a man she had seen only once, into her home without hesitation. She hadn't wanted Samyung to know that San had moved into the apartment upstairs, but it was too late. As if reading her thoughts, Han spoke up. He confirmed that he had indeed moved into the apartment above hers. Then he added that he had only come by to greet her and ended up staying for coffee. That wasn't the part that interested Samyung. He fixated on the fact that Han now lived upstairs. And just when Seo hoped the moment would pass, Han made it worse. He mentioned that the decision had come from CEO Hwang himself. That bit of information threw Samyung into confusion and quickly into anger. Samyung couldn't understand it. Why would CEO Hwang, a man known for being stingy, agree to something so extravagant? But that was only the first surprise of the day. The second came when Seo Kang told him it was she who had invited Han-san into her home. He hadn't expected that. She explained further. Han probably thought it would be better to greet her in advance rather than risk surprising her later. She also admitted this was her first experience with close personal protection. She thought it might come off as rude if she showed her usual distant attitude. After hearing her explanation, Samyung stayed quiet. He found himself wondering why she sounded so defensive. He knew he had no right to interfere or get upset. He considered leaving, but before he could move, Seo suggested they go to the hospital to treat his hand. He waved off the idea. To him, a small finger injury wasn't worth worrying about. He reminded her that he once recovered from a serious head injury without issue. So this was nothing. Still, the mood shifted. The silence between them made it clear to Han that something was going on. Samyung realized he had spoken too much. He apologized, saying he shouldn't have brought up the past. But his words had already struck a nerve. Seo's expression turned cold. She said skipping a meal wouldn't hurt her. Then she told him to focus on his own health, and to keep his distance if possible. That caught Samyung off guard. He quickly responded, asking how she could say something like that when he was her manager. Seo didn't take her words back. She had noticed a pattern. Whenever he was around, trouble followed. That thought made her feel even more burdened. Still, Samyung refused to walk away. He told her firmly that he would remain her manager no matter what. He would stay by her side until the end. All this played out in front of Han-san, but he didn't step in. He simply observed, letting them speak freely. When the conversation ended and the air settled, he finally spoke. He said that now the misunderstanding had been cleared, it was the right time to brief her on the details of the close protection plan. But Samyung wasn't in support. He stated plainly that even if CEO Hwang had ordered it, he saw it as an invasion of privacy. He added that there was no reason to bring this up on her day off. Han-san scoffed at Samyung's objection. He asked if Samyung would take responsibility if something happened to Seo Kang because he told him to back off. It was clear that San was warning him not to interfere with security matters. Samyung understood the message. He leaned back in his seat and stayed quiet, choosing to let San speak. Noticing this, San continued. He calmly explained that what he was about to say applied only in specific situations, times when Seo might truly need his help. There was no need to worry. His words, steady and measured, put Samyung at ease. Then San turned to Seo and told her directly. She could call on him anytime she felt the need. With that, the conversation ended. Each person went their separate way, leaving Seo alone once again. Her fear of falling asleep remained. It had been a few nights since the three of them shared tea together, Now she sat quietly, scrolling through her phone, wondering how she had managed before her dream savior appeared. She couldn't count how many days it had been since he last came to her in a dream. And now the nightmares had returned. The nights when she drifted off lightly, only to be tormented again, had started repeating. She remembered asking San if they had met before. She remembered how he simply said he had only seen her on television. As she scrolled through old photos and messages, she began to question everything. Maybe she had imagined the whole encounter. Then her phone displayed a news article about her. It was a story about how she had bounced back from adversity. Still, her mind stayed on the dream. She tried to push the thoughts away and focus instead on a picture she found in her gallery. She didn't remember when it was taken, but she didn't dwell on it. She decided to head to bed, even though she already knew how it would go. In the end, the fear of reliving that pain kept her awake. She stayed up and chose to work instead. By morning, she walked to the parking lot where both Samyong and Han-san were waiting. Samyong greeted her warmly. Then San looked at her and asked if she had slept well. She wondered why he was asking. Was he trying to upset her? She hadn't slept at all. And in her mind, he was still the man from her dreams. So, in a quiet moment of blame, she told herself that her sleepless night was his fault. Because he wasn't by her side. Seo was still deep in thought when Samyong broke the silence. He mentioned he was going to buy coffee and casually asked San if he wanted an Americano. That snapped her back to reality. To her surprise, San politely declined the offer and called Samyong bro. She blinked. A few days ago, these two could barely tolerate each other. Now they were trading drinks and nicknames? Seo said nothing at first. But after a long pause, she finally voiced what had been bothering her. She pointed out the sudden shift in atmosphere between them. It felt unfamiliar, almost artificial. San responded calmly. He said they had met separately once, and during that meeting, he suggested they become friends. Just like that. First, the CEO set San up with a luxury apartment. Now, he was calling her longtime manager his brother. It was starting to add up. Too neatly. Seo didn't know how he managed to win over the CEO. But in Samyong's case, she suspected something deeper. According to what she had gathered, their meeting took place at night. What she didn't know was whether it happened in the real world or inside a dream. All that was clear was that during the meeting, when Samyong asked why San was there, a strange fog began to cloud his vision. The fog seemed to affect his mind. He grew drowsy, almost like he was drifting into a trance. In that moment, San had suggested they become friends, saying it was better since they'd be seeing a lot of each other. He asked if they could get along. Whatever charm he used, it worked. Samyong agreed. Not just to get along, but to become the best of partners. If this really happened, then it meant San might be Seo's dream savior after all, just pretending not to know. Seo wasn't aware of the details, but she sensed something wasn't right. Her first thought was that he had threatened Samyong into agreeing. Her second was that he warned him not to annoy him or face consequences. Even if neither guess was true, one thing was clear. They were getting along unusually well. Seo, sharp as ever, picked up on the oddness. She remembered how both CEO Hwang and Samyong, two men not easily swayed, had softened toward San without explanation. They weren't acting like themselves. It was as if they were under a spell. It was surprising how quickly Seo connected the dots. Still, despite her growing suspicion, San remained unbothered. Calmly, he asked if she genuinely believed both men had been bewitched. Before she could answer, Samyong returned with coffee in hand. He immediately commented on how photogenic the pair looked, seated side by side. According to him, it felt like he was driving around with two celebrities. Seo ignored the odd remark and went straight to the point. She asked Samyong about his private meeting with San. Her tone was direct. She wanted to know if San was holding something over him. But Samyong denied it. He said the only person who had any leverage over him was her, and even then, he hadn't done anything wrong. He had nothing to hide. That led to her next question. How did they grow close so quickly? He explained that San had visited him at home and brought premium Korean beef as a gift. That simple gesture broke the ice. And now she realized something important. It wasn't a dream. The moonlit background she recalled must have been the actual view from Samyung's rooftop apartment. Continuing the story, Samyung admitted that he initially assumed San was arrogant, probably because of his good looks. But the thoughtful gesture changed his opinion. He decided San might be a decent person after all. Seo found that hard to believe. Beef? That was all it took? He assured her it wasn't just the meat. It was the kindness behind it. Still, Seo wasn't convinced. To her, San looked more like an undertaker than someone with a warm heart. Before she could say more, Samyung made things worse. He suggested that since she and San were around the same age, they should become friends. Sure, they had only just met, but according to him, it was good for lonely people to build connections. Seo quickly corrected him. She wasn't lonely, but now her suspicions were growing. Maybe Samyung was under some kind of influence after all. The two men soon shifted the conversation to food. Out of politeness, Samyung offered to prepare a meal for San. San declined at first, saying he wasn't particular about food, but Samyung pressed further, asking what kind of dish he liked. He promised to make it for him, confident in his cooking skills. Eventually, San gave an answer. There was one dish he truly loved, but strangely, he had never been able to eat it. San's quiet confession hung in the air. There was only one thing he truly craved, one dish he loved above all, but he had never been able to taste it. The truth behind that mystery wasn't clear to Samyung, but Seo knew. It was dreams. Her dream. She remembered it clearly now. How he told her that. How he cloaked the truth, pretending not to know her. All this time, he was the man from her dream. The one who saved her. The one who hasn't returned to her subconscious since. And ever since he disappeared, her nights had been invaded by nightmares so intense they bordered on euphoric terror. But she had to push that aside for now. San had just asked her about that incident, the one she hated to revisit. The moment he mentioned it, her chest tightened. Even Samyung, usually calm, visibly tensed up. The question hit hard, and Seo instinctively tried to deflect. She told San that the CEO had already briefed him, so there was no need to bring it up again. But San wasn't interested in secondhand reports. He wanted to hear it directly. From her, from Samyung, from the ones who lived it. And despite her suspicions about him, he was still the head of her security. Maybe hearing the full story would help him protect her? So she tried to shift into a more rational mindset, at least for now. She took a slow breath. That day, it had all started so normally. She was returning home from a small local event. Nothing grand. She'd even stopped for a restroom break before getting to the car, alone. And that was the opening. The man had been watching. He knew she was alone. He made his move. She never saw his face at first. Just the hand, reaching, grabbing, dragging. She fought. She screamed. And somehow, someone nearby called the police. The chase that followed ended when the man crashed into a tree during his frantic escape. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. As if possessed, he stood back up and came toward her, eyes wild, breath heavy, and said something that made her skin crawl. He said she smelled delicious. He said he wanted a bite. There was nothing human in his eyes, nothing sane in his voice. At the time, Seo didn't notice. She was too focused on surviving, too frantic to process the monster standing in front of her. San, however, was listening carefully, and when she mentioned the attacker's strange craving, how he described her scent like a delicacy, something shifted behind San's expression. He didn't say anything, but the way his eyes darkened, it was as if he recognized that kind of hunger. Even though she tried to end the conversation firmly, labeling the incident as harassment, brushing it off as the police did, San didn't press further. He simply nodded, said he'd take her words into consideration, and calmly placed a hand on her shoulder. His touch was too gentle, too confident. It felt like someone quietly staking a claim. She tensed. He told her she should get some rest, that she must be exhausted. And maybe she was, but sleep was the last thing she wanted. Not now. Not after all that had been said. She knocked his hand away, sharp and swift. "I'm fine," she said, voice clipped. And that was her warning. A polite way of telling him to back off before she said something less polite. But San didn't move. Instead, he offered to hold her hand. A small gesture, one that sent a chill through her spine. She didn't take it. Her discomfort was obvious, the way her eyes flicked away, the way her fingers curled inwards, guarding themselves. That's when Samyong spoke up. He chuckled awkwardly, trying to ease the tension. He'd once heard, he said, that holding hands with someone strong could keep evil spirits away. "Maybe you should try it," he added. But Seo didn't flinch. She wasn't interested in superstitions or comfort. Not from them, not now. Still, San didn't budge. He stretched out his hand anyway. The same calm look in his eyes. "If you take it," he said softly, "no ghost or man will come near you." But she didn't. And she didn't have to. Because the next thing she knew, she was waking up in the back of the van. The sun was already creeping into the sky, painting faint gold across the clouds. A blanket covered her lap. The windows fogged faintly from the inside. Her body rested, but her mind raced. How did she fall asleep? She didn't remember closing her eyes. She didn't remember giving in. And yet, she'd slept. And more strangely, there had been no nightmare. For the first time in what felt like forever, her dreams were silent. No twisted shadows, no choking fear, just a void of nothingness. Peaceful and deeply suspicious. It should have comforted her, but it didn't. Instead, it unnerved her. After so many nights of torment, she didn't know how to accept calm. It felt unnatural, like waiting for the other shoe to drop, like a calm before a deeper storm. She stared down at her hand. There was warmth there. Faint, but real. The same warmth she'd felt before. The same sensation she remembered from that night in the dream, when he had pulled her free. Could he have? Before she could reach a conclusion, a tap on her shoulder pulled her back into the world. San's voice broke through softly. "Did you sleep well?" His tone was light, but it carried weight. She looked up, uncertain. Her mind said no, because uncertainty was her armor now. But her body, her spirit whispered, yes, she had, because of him. And that was the scariest part of all. In truth, she had enjoyed her long rest. Even when San tried to wake her up several times, she didn't respond. To him, that meant he did well. So why did she suddenly shove his hand off her shoulder? The gesture caught him off guard. Confused, he asked if he had done something wrong. He couldn't understand why she was acting so cold. But Seo had her reasons. At this point, she was convinced that San was the man who appeared in her dreams. She decided not to hold back anymore. Her voice rose as she demanded to know who he really was. She accused him of being the one who had saved her in her dreams, and the one still protecting her now. Even if he was the reason she had no nightmares, she wanted answers. She wanted to know exactly what he did and how. San stayed calm. He simply told her that what mattered was that she had slept well. Then, he asked if she really wanted to hear the truth. Her answer didn't change. She insisted on knowing what he had done. This time, he didn't hide. He told her that she was able to rest because he had eaten her nightmare. And according to him, it tasted good. That was the truth. And now that it was out in the open, Seo wasn't sure how to respond. She had asked for honesty, but now that she had it, she didn't know what to feel. San continued, shifting her focus back to what her attacker had said the day he tried to kidnap her. She remembered the moment clearly. The fear. The strange way the man kept saying she smelled delicious. San explained that the attacker had responded that way because of her dream. He said it calmly, but she struggled to accept it. She tried to argue, but he cut in again. That man, San said, had not been fully human. He was a low-level spirit. According to San, spirits had laws, and one of those laws forbade murder. But that spirit had been so hungry, he nearly broke the rule. Seo stood there, stunned. All she had wanted was the truth. And now that she had it, her mind wasn't ready for what it meant. She had already suspected that San was the man from her dream. She had even guessed that he might have eaten her nightmare. But knowing it for sure still made her feel uneasy. She realized that pretending not to know might have been easier after all. If she had never found out, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe things would be simpler now, for both of them. It's all too much. And maybe San can see that, because he gently asks if he's said enough. She blinks, unsure what he means. He explains that from the beginning, the outcome was already set. He was always going to eat her dreams, but he needed to hear her response. Needed to see how she'd take it. As he speaks, he steps closer. Calmly, he notes that she looks a little hurt. Then he softly suggests she get more rest. To her, it feels condescending, like he's treating her like she's unstable. Maybe he thinks she's too slow to realize how he's been manipulating everyone, how he's managed to charm or confuse them into silence. But she's no fool, and she's had enough. She warns him not to deny what even he doesn't understand. She's certain now. He's not human. He doesn't deny it. Instead, he asks her, "What do you see in me?" It sounds like a game, another riddle. Like he wants her to stop asking questions, to stop digging deeper. But Seo isn't easily pushed aside. She's not weak. She grabs him by the tie, pulls him in close. Her voice is steady. "I'm not afraid of you," she says. "Your threats don't work anymore." Then she flips it. "Are you afraid of me?" she asks. "Afraid I'll expose what you really are?" He doesn't flinch. Instead, he calmly replies, "The only thing I fear is not being able to protect you." His answer lingers in the air. It makes her think. But there's no time for more questions. Not right now. Whatever this is between them, whatever truth still hangs in silence, will have to wait. The morning sun is shining. The day has begun, and there's work to do. When they arrive, a cheerful woman hurries over to greet them. She's smiling wide, clearly happy to see Seo again. "It's been a while," the woman says. Seo smiles, composed. "It has. How have you been?" "I'm fine," she replies. Then, gently, "Are you okay now?" Seo nods, keeping her expression calm. "I am." The woman clearly means well, but she can't help herself. She assumes Seo must have been terrified during the attack. Who wouldn't be? She even mutters that all those criminals should be locked up. But her focus on Seo shifts the moment her eyes land on San. Her whole tone changes. Her heart skips. She leans forward and blurts, "Who's the hottie?" Seo answers bluntly, "Security guard." That wasn't the answer she was expecting. And just as she starts to fix her gaze a little too long, Samyong steps in like a strict school teacher. "That's enough," he says, firm and annoyed. "Back to work." She startles at his tone. "You're gonna be late on your first day back if you keep gawking," he adds. She quickly apologizes and scurries off, no longer batting her lashes at San. Maybe Samyong has shaken off the spell a little. Next, she introduces Seo to the new scalp and hair care specialist, June. June is warm, polite, and professional. She bows slightly and makes Seo feel at ease. The kindness is mutual. Seo agrees to a proper scalp massage. Just for a little while, she'll let someone take care of her. Outside the room, San leans casually against the wall, eyes alert, playing the role of bodyguard. Inside, June checks in repeatedly. "Too hot? Too cold?" Let me know if the pressure is okay. But Seo doesn't respond much. The comfort overwhelms her, and before long, her thoughts blur and drift. She falls asleep. But this isn't peaceful sleep. Her breath catches. She's dreaming again. And this time, she's right back in that nightmare, with the same man, the one who tried to drag her away, the one San identified as something less than human. The pain returns, that sharp edge of terror she thought she could escape. It's starting all over again. But just as the fear crests, it shifts. San appears in the dream like a blade through smoke. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. He moves with precise violence, ending the nightmare in seconds. The demon fades. Peace returns. She sleeps deeper, lighter. Her face softens and June finishes the massage. It's Seo's first day back after time away, and rest is still a luxury. The moment the massage ends, she's up and moving. There's a magazine interview on the schedule, followed by a long strategy meeting, one that CEO Huang himself attends. The man seems sharper, more focused lately. After that, a prearranged meeting with an industry peer wraps up her packed agenda. Despite it all, she handles the day well. Sure, the sleep during the massage helped, but it was more than that. It was him, San. Without his quiet intervention, she might have crumbled before the day even reached noon. Now the sun begins to dip. The long day is finally winding down. They were both standing at the elevator in their apartment complex, waiting quietly for the doors to open. When the elevator arrived, they stepped in together. During the ride, Seo suddenly became curious. San had once told her that he would come anytime she called him, but he never explained how she was supposed to call him. She asked him about it. His answer was simple: just call his name, Hansen. He assured her that no matter where or when, if she called his name, he would come. It was a bold promise, but they didn't have time to continue the conversation. The elevator reached her floor. She stepped out and began walking toward her unit. Then, partway down the hall, she stopped. Something had slipped her mind. She turned around slightly. There was something she needed to say. She wanted him to understand that she needed him to be there for her. She didn't care whether he was human or not. What mattered was that if she ever called out to him, desperately, in fear, he shouldn't ignore her. It almost sounded like she was making a pact with a spirit. His response, just before the elevator doors closed, was a simple, "Good night." She stood in the hallway for a few moments, thinking about the way he smiled when he said it didn't matter that he wasn't human. Still, she knew he was hiding something. Whatever it was, she believed it would come to light in time. As she walked the rest of the way to her room, her mind stayed on him. She couldn't stop thinking about what he might really be. Later, during her bath, her thoughts shifted. She remembered something she had read online. It explained that nightmares weren't just bad dreams. They were entities. These beings fed on human fear and terror through nightmares. But there were also heavenly beings, the complete opposites. According to what she had learned, heavenly beings governed the full cycle of human life: birth, death, and every emotion in between. They worked through dreams, helping humans experience life with empathy. That meant celestial dreams and nightmare-induced dreams came from entirely different realms. The two types served different purposes. Celestials were described as divine messengers with holy duties. Reading all of this helped her understand that dream-controlling beings were divided into two main groups. For now, she put the information aside and focused on finishing her bath. As the water ran, an old memory she thought she'd forgotten suddenly came back to her. She remembered something odd, something from long ago. It might have been a dream, or maybe something more. In that dream, someone had asked her a question. "Do you want to live?" The voice warned her. Terrifying dreams would haunt her every night. Still, it asked, did she want to live? She had said yes, without hesitation. The figure in the dream accepted her answer but left her with a strange farewell. She was given 20 years and begged not to die. And she didn't. Now, 20 years later, she was meeting San, and something inside her felt like she had reached the end of that timeline. She wanted answers. So she returned to that site she had been reading about, the one with information on dream beings. But this time, the page didn't exist. Just like before. The first time she had searched for that information, it had disappeared when she tried to revisit it. Now it was happening again. Still, she didn't panic. She just sat quietly, trying to figure out if this was all a coincidence. Or San's doing. Was he behind the missing pages? She didn't know which side he was on. Not yet. But she had a feeling. Maybe tonight's dream would tell her. Earlier in the day, she had managed to rest twice. Both times, peacefully. She thought she'd have the same kind of sleep tonight. She was wrong. The nightmare was different this time. Not the usual kind. This one was a memory. A terrible one. She was a little girl again, trapped in the back seat of an overturned car. She screamed for help, unable to move, while her parents, lifeless in the front seats, were slumped against the shattered windshield. She called out to them. And then, they moved. But not like living people. They turned toward her slowly, their faces pale, eyes vacant. Not human anymore. Not really. They started to crawl toward her. This wasn't supposed to happen, they said, again and again. It wasn't our time. It was yours. The words echoed around her like a curse. She screamed and begged them to stay back, but they kept coming, their hands outstretched. This was the moment when San was supposed to show up. He always did, but he wasn't there. Not yet. Maybe she hadn't called his name. The nightmare twisted again. Suddenly, she was falling, plummeting into darkness, the screams fading behind her. And then, silence. She woke up, or she thought she did. She sat up in her bed, heart pounding, relief washing over her. But something was wrong. The room felt off, still, cold, not like waking. She wasn't awake. She could feel it now, an evil presence swirling in the air around her. The nightmare wasn't over. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "San..." She didn't want this. She was terrified. But she remembered. He had promised. If she called his name, he would come. Even though she kept calling out, there was no answer. Her voice went unheard. The nightmare didn't stop. She remembered that he had told her to call his name when she was in danger. He said he wouldn't be able to resist coming to her, but he still wasn't there. She had called his name, yet nothing changed. The nightmare got worse. A giant eyeball appeared on the ceiling. Slowly, it moved toward her. Inch by inch, it crept closer. Soon, it was right above her. Then, just before it reached her, San appeared. He ended the nightmare in an instant. She was safe now. Tears welled up in her eyes as she asked why he had taken so long to come. He didn't answer. Instead, he moved gently toward her and asked if she had cried a lot. She didn't answer that either. Instead, she asked him something else. She wanted to know if this was still a dream. He confirmed it was. He told her everything would disappear once she woke up. Still, he helped put her room back in order. He guided her through the night calmly, making sure nothing else would disturb her. This made her wonder, would he keep doing this from now on? He didn't respond to that question. Instead, he said something else. Now that she could recognize him in her dreams, it would be easier for her to call him. And she probably would. Many more times in the nights ahead. For now, though, she was safe again. Still, it felt strange how quickly the nightmare ended. It didn't seem real. She became curious. She asked if it was possible for him to appear before she even called. She wanted him there before she fell asleep. That kind of permission would give him more access. It might be a problem later. But she didn't care anymore. He was the one who had told her, inside the dream, that he wanted to eat her dreams. If that's what he wanted, she would allow it. Every part of it, from beginning to end. Whether he was human or not didn't matter to her. What mattered was that she could sleep peacefully. No more chaotic nightmares. No more fear. It was a deal in her mind, a mutual exchange. He got her dreams. She got her rest. She thought she was asking something simple, but it wasn't. San explained that consuming her dreams wasn't without risk. He might lose control. He might end up wanting more than just her fear. He might want her. And if that happened, he wondered, would she beg him to stop? Would she cry for him to save her? He reminded her of something else, too. She had once asked who he really was. Now, he told her the truth. He was what humans called a nightmare, a being born to feed on fear. He wasn't fully in control of himself. Instinct ruled him. That was the danger. That was why he was holding back, especially when it came to her. Her dreams were tempting, but he didn't want to harm her. If he devoured all her fear, he said, he might not be able to stop himself. Strangely, that confession didn't frighten her. If anything, it made her realize he actually cared. And now she understood something important. Things had to stay exactly the way they were. The version of him in her dreams, that was her creation. But the real version, the one outside her mind, she wanted to protect that too. She wasn't afraid. She trusted herself to keep things under control. She'd learned something valuable from everything he shared. The reason he hadn't lost control yet was simple. He didn't want her dreams enough to risk everything. That was his weakness. And she could use that to keep them both safe. So she made a quiet decision. She wouldn't let him into her dreams anymore. She remembered what he told her. His biggest fear was losing the chance to protect her. That wasn't about her. That was about him. If she died, he'd lose access to her dreams forever. Now, she was no longer dreaming. She had been awake for a while, and for the first time, she didn't want to keep going. She had held on for so long, hoping for peace, hoping one day she'd find happiness. But she finally saw it wasn't coming. There was no future for her. So she decided, if it meant taking away his control, she would end it. As many ways, as many times as it took. He wasn't human, and now that mattered. She cared, because she was done. She didn't hesitate. She climbed to the highest floor and jumped. As her body fell through the cold night air, she wondered what San was thinking. Did he care? Or was she just another soul with too many bad dreams, one he could replace? She couldn't know, and maybe she never would. Was this the end of her story? That's for part 2 to decide. If this pulled you in, drop a comment below saying, I need part 2. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on our post notifications so you never miss any stories. Until next time, ciao.